Welcome to our Thursday podcast as we are heading towards the weekend. When we get to Sunday morning, we'll be each preaching, teaching on the Beatitudes. And what does that even mean, right? It's this idea of blessing. And that's a word that we use a lot.
I'm so blessed.
Right. What does it mean? When I took Greek in divinity school, and I struggled through Greek. I struggled through Greek because I don't know English.
Yeah.
Well, but I got through it. But I remember specifically working through the Beatitudes, and the word blessed, the word in Greek is makorioi, and it's not all that easy to define. It's like, and here's one of those tricky things about translation is there's so many words in the Greek language and the Hebrew language that do not have a natural equivalent in English. And the nuance of it is hard to pick up on. But at the heart of it, it's this idea of you have found favor with. Right? It's this idea that you're on God's good side. You're in God's good grace. You're accepted. You're loved. The idea that you have found favor with is hospitality. It's welcome. It's warmth.
So this book that I greatly value, Douglas Hare, says that we could almost in the English translate that word that Steve just used as congratulations in our Western sense of understanding. It's like, wow, this is really good for you. Right. You have done this. So it's fascinating. So as we get into the meat of some of these, Steve, we hold that understanding. It's a congratulations. It's a deep blessedness. Some translations have even gone to translating it happy, which is another connotation of it. But as you say, it's really hard to put into English exactly what is meant in the Greek here.
Right.
So let's read a few of these today, and we'll comment on them.
Right. Okay.
So let's begin. Jesus has sat down. He begins to speak. He taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." That whole kingdom of heaven thing that we talked about last week. "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." And then the final one for today, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy." Let's break those down a little bit. Steve, talk a little bit about blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Well, I imagine that, when Jesus starts blessed, makorioi, of course he was speaking in Aramaic, I don't know the Aramaic word, but blessed are, and they're sitting there thinking, in my mind, if I was in the crowd, it'd be like, blessed are the rich.
Right? Blessed are those who've got attained a great position.
Who do you think's blessed, right? Who do you think's well off? Well, blessed are the poor. It would have been like, you can imagine somebody turning to somebody else in the crowd going, did he really say blessed are the poor? Because in first century Judaism, in their theological understanding, if you were poor, well, it was because you sinned.
Yeah, you just you didn't have found the favor of God.
You were lazy. You were unproductive.
So Luke goes so far as to actually say the blessed are the poor, which is almost an economic condition. Matthew holds it and says poor in spirit, which would have been similar in the fact that you'd have been down, out, kind of on the lower end of the...
Or those who may not, we're talking about, it's like, blessed are those who don't get a single answer right in Sunday school. Blessed are those who don't know jack about the Bible. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So poor in spirit is a something that there's an emptiness. There's a hollowness. There's space for something different.
Which is they're not self-fulfilled.
Not self-fulfilled. Hadn't self-aggrandizing.
And it means they're open, right? Part of why we have a hard time, I think, living into our faith is we clutter up our souls with everything else. And we have such cluttered minds and hearts. We carry so many things that we don't need that we don't make room for God. And the poor in spirit, they know they need God. They know, isn't one of the first steps to recovery is kind of admitting you have a problem, right?
I got an issue. Yeah.
Right. And the poor in spirit, they don't, the self-righteous, they're not going to stop to think about God. But the poor in spirit are going, I need something.
And so their blessing is the kingdom of heaven, which we have defined as the reign, the rule of God. It's that sense in which...
It's this idea of God's action and activity. And what does it mean that God's activity is most given, that the people who are poor in spirit are the ones who can be most receptive to what God is doing?
So the next one, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. As someone who certainly still mourns, as lost my parents, both of my parents last week.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Last week I lost a dear childhood friend, somebody who was 58 years old, my age. We think about mourning. We think about that deep sense of loss that we feel, which is often really indicative of the ways that we're disconnected from those we love.
Right, and this is not only just mourning the loss of life, it's mourning and seeing the brokenness and the other things in the world. For instance, I mourn the fact that we've had how many shootings already in the United States, right? We've had, already we've had multiple. I mourn the fact that that people are targeted because of their race. I mourn the fact that we can't figure that out.
Right.
I mourn the fact that we have some deep division in our country and in our denomination. Those are things you can mourn. When you mourn, you see that something is not as it should be. Yeah. There's a loss.
Yeah, that disconnect, that idea that things are not as you have known them to be or wished them to be or longed for them to be. And the promise is that you will be comforted. I think that's a beautiful expression when we think about compassion. That's the word that I think Jesus comes and sits with us in that mourning, that loss, that disconnect, and says, let me be the connection for you. And that's a beautiful thing to think about. That's the antidote to this deep sense of mourning, is I will sit with you and be with you in that.
Right.
So then we go from there to blessed are the meek,
for they will inherit the earth.
Oh my goodness.
What does that mean?
So, I think about the antithesis of what we hold as meek. The brash, the self-aggrandizing, the bold, the self-proclaimer that says, I'm the greatest, I'm the king, I'm all of this. Blessed, Jesus says, are those who are meek, who are not tied to their own self-worth and their own value. They're not trying to create that self-value for themselves. They're humble in the fact that they are themselves. And Jesus promises then...
Well, especially in a world where... It sounds like I'm introducing a movie trailer. In the world.
In the world.
In the world. But the meek... Who becomes emperor in those days? It's who's the strongest. It's who's the most, Caesar kind of established that about 40 years before Jesus comes on the scene. He is a warlord who rises to be the first Roman emperor, and the way that empire is controlled is by rising through the ranks. It's by killing your enemies. It's by being the strongest and the most aggressive. And yet Jesus, and in those days, you would think, the Romans claim, the Roman emperor think the world is mine, but Jesus is saying, no, the earth really will belong to those who are at the bottom.
So let's move it along so we can get through these. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. That word righteousness is such a difficult word, again, for us to put our minds around, but as I choose to believe, I think it is to be in the right relationship with God. What is the right relationship with God? Is it perfectly obeying the rules or whatever it is? No, it is living in the right relationship with God, which is trust. That deep sense of faith that says, I believe you are with me, you are for me.
It's longing for justice.
And it is that things will be right in the world because you will be, that's who God is. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Meaning the fullness of God's kingdom will be experienced.
Yeah.
Then we get to blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Now, we could spend days talking about this one. How upside down is it in the world when we see people in this cancel culture and how we live out our lives? Oh, we want you to be punished for what you've done. But when it comes to us, we don't necessarily want justice for us.
No. It's
We want that person who's driving too fast, make sure they get a ticket. But for us, oh, babe, I had a real good excuse for going too fast.
Yeah, they passed me, so they're going faster than me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's the orientation away from self towards others.
Yeah.
Right, and it's also one of those things that, again, in the brutal world of the first century, you didn't get ahead by showing mercy.
No.
You got ahead by being ruthless, and that's still true.
Yeah.
So what's happening here, and you've already picked up on this, is, yesterday we talked a little bit about the pyramid. The success is climbing to the very top. Jesus is taking that and turning it upside down. And we'll continue talking about the upside down nature of what Jesus is proclaiming tomorrow. So look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you for joining us.